Doctor floated in zero gravity near the observation window of her research ship. She watched the dark space beyond, looking for anything unusual among the rocks and ice chunks that drifted in the cold outer edges of the solar system. Had spent 15 years studying old things in space, but today felt different somehow. "Doctor, you need to see this," called from his workstation. His voice carried a strange mix of excitement and confusion that made push off from the window and drift over to his screens. Pointed at the readings scrolling across his monitors. "The metal detector is going crazy. Look at these numbers." Studied the display and frowned. The readings showed massive amounts of metal buried inside what looked like ordinary asteroids, but the amounts were impossible. No space rock should contain that much refined metal. "Run the scan again," ordered. "Maybe the equipment is broken." Typed commands into his computer. The same results appeared on screen. Called over the rest of her small team to look at the strange readings. "These asteroids are fake," said Dr. James Wright, the team's engineer. "Real asteroids don't have metal signatures like this." Made a decision that would change everything. "Take us closer to the largest one. I want a full surface scan." Their ship moved slowly through the asteroid field. As they got closer to the biggest rock, more details appeared on their screens. What they saw made no sense. The asteroid's surface looked normal from far away, but the close-up scans showed something incredible hidden underneath. The rock was just a thin shell covering something massive and artificial. Whispered, "This thing is huge. The scans show it goes back almost 50 kilometers. "That's impossible," said, but her voice was shaking. "Nothing that big should be hiding out here." Dr. Wright was studying the metal readings more carefully. "The composition is strange too. These metals, some of them don't match anything in our databases. They look like advanced alloys." Ordered the team to scan more asteroids in the area. Every single one showed the same impossible readings. Hidden beneath each rocky shell was a massive metal structure. "How many are there?" asked. Worked at his computer for several minutes, scanning the entire field. When he looked up, his face was pale. "Over 800,000, all of them artificial. All of them hidden under fake asteroid shells." The silence on the bridge stretched for long minutes. His mind raced as she tried to understand what they had found. 800,000 hidden objects in their own solar system, objects that had been hiding here without anyone knowing. "We need to get inside one of them," finally said. Dr. Wright shook his head. "We don't know what these things are. They could be dangerous. Maybe we should report this to Earth Command first. If we report this now, they'll send a military fleet and take over the discovery. We need to understand what we've found first." Knew she was taking a risk, but her scientific curiosity was stronger than her fear. These objects had been hidden in their solar system for who knows how long. She had to know what they were. The team selected the smallest hidden structure for their investigation. It was still enormous, but easier to approach than the others. They flew their ship close to its surface and began looking for a way inside. "There," pointed at his screen. "Some kind of opening or hatch. It's well hidden, but our scans show a break in the shell." As their ship approached the hidden opening, something unexpected happened. Lights began to glow along the asteroid's surface. The fake rock shell started to move, sections sliding apart to reveal the true structure underneath. What emerged from the disguise took breath away. The object was not just big, it was a masterpiece of engineering. Smooth metal surfaces stretched into the distance, covered with designs and markings that looked both ancient and incredibly advanced. Dr. Wright's voice was barely a whisper. "This is a ship, a starship, and it's bigger than anything humanity has ever built." More lights activated along the vessel's hull as their small research ship approached. Suddenly, a communication signal reached them, not in any Earth language but somehow understood it perfectly. "Welcome, children of Earth. We have been waiting for you." The voice was artificial, clearly from a computer, but it spoke with warmth and something that seemed like joy. Founder voice, who are you? What is this place? I am the guardian of Vessel 7777. You are humans, yes, from the world you call Earth. Yes, we're human, but how do you know our language? How long have you been here? We have been waiting for 12,000 years, waiting for you to find us, waiting for you to return to the stars and discover your true heritage. The team exchanged confused looks. Heritage? What did this machine mean? I don't understand, said. Humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. That is what you believe, child of Earth, but you are wrong. Your people built us long ago, before the Great Hiding began. We are the Eternal Watch, and we have protected this system while waiting for your return. The artificial voice paused, and could hear what sounded like ancient systems coming online all around them. The time of hiding is almost over. The enemy your ancestors feared is coming. Soon you will need us. Soon you will remember who you really are. Stared at the massive ship surrounding their tiny research vessel. 800,000 of these giants, hidden in their own solar system, built by humans 12,000 years ago. It was impossible, but the evidence floated right in front of her. Her hands shook as she opened a communication channel back to Earth. Whatever her team had discovered would change everything humanity thought they knew about themselves. And according to this guardian, an enemy was coming. Took a deep breath and began her report to Earth Command, knowing that in a few minutes, the entire course of human history would change forever. 3 weeks after its discovery, the outer solar system buzzed with activity. Earth Command had sent their largest fleet to investigate the hidden vessels. Admiral Sarah stood on the bridge of the flagship Endeavour, watching dozens of excavation ships work to uncover more of the ancient starships. Admiral, reported Captain Mills, we've successfully entered 12 of the vessels so far. Each one is responding to human presence just like the first. Admiral nodded, but her expression remained troubled. In 3 weeks, everything humanity thought they knew about their history had been turned upside down. These ships were clearly built by humans, but humans from a time when Earth was supposed to be populated by primitive tribes. Have the archaeology teams found anything new? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Doctor wants to brief you personally. She says what they've discovered inside these ships will shock you. Admiral made her way to the shuttle bay and flew over to Vessel 7774, where his team had set up their main research station. The ship's interior was like nothing she had ever seen. Corridors stretched for kilometers, wide enough to drive ground vehicles through. The walls were covered with materials that seemed to glow with their own light. Met her at the entrance, looking exhausted but excited. Admiral, thank you for coming. What we found, it changes everything. They walked deeper into the ship, passing rooms filled with technology that seemed both ancient and impossibly advanced. Explained what her teams had learned over the past weeks. Each ship has an AI guardian like the one we first contacted. They've been active this whole time, maintaining the vessels and waiting for us to find them. The ships are enormous, Admiral. This one is 53 kilometers long. Some of the others are even bigger. Admiral tried to imagine ships that large. The biggest vessels in the Earth fleet were barely 2 kilometers long. The technology is incredible, continued. The metal these ships are made from is stronger than anything we have. The power systems generate more energy than our entire planetary grid, and the weapons. Paused at a massive door that slid open as they approached. Beyond was a chamber so large that Admiral couldn't see the far walls. Strange devices lined the space, each one the size of a city building. The Guardian calls these reality shapers, explained. According to the ship's computer, these weapons can bend space itself. They can make enemy ships simply stop existing. Admiral stared at the impossible weapons. How is this possible? How could ancient humans build something like this? That's what we're trying to understand. The ship's records go back 12,000 years, but they reference even older human civilizations. Admiral, I think humanity has been spacefaring for much longer than we ever imagined. They continued through the ship, visiting manufacturing bays that could build entire fleets, storage areas filled with materials Earth had never seen, and crew quarters designed for thousands of people. "Where are the crews?" Admiral asked. "That's one of the mysteries. The ships were designed for human crews, but they've been operating with just their AI guardians for thousands of years. The AIs say the crews left long ago, but they won't explain where they went." They reached the ship's command center, a vast room dominated by a central platform surrounded by screens and control panels. The Guardian's voice welcomed them as they entered. "Admiral, welcome aboard. I am pleased to finally meet a leader of the current human civilization." "Thank you," Admiral replied, still getting used to talking with the ancient AI. "I need to understand what these ships are for. Why were they built? Why are they hidden?" The screens around them lit up, showing images of space that looked wrong somehow. Stars flickered and died. Entire solar systems disappeared into darkness. "Your ancestors built us to fight an enemy that devours galaxies," the Guardian explained. "They called them the Devourers, machines from beyond this galaxy that consume everything in their path." More images appeared, massive dark ships that blocked out stars, planets stripped of all life and matter, civilizations ending in silence and emptiness. "Your ancestors detected the Devourers approaching this galaxy 12,000 years ago. They knew they could not stop them with the technology of that time, so they chose to hide." Admiral felt cold despite the warm air in the command center. "Hide how?" "They built us, their greatest weapons, and concealed us in this outer system. Then they scattered themselves across primitive worlds throughout the galaxy, becoming simple tribes and villages. They chose to forget their advanced civilization so the Devourers would not detect them when they arrived." Gasped. "You're saying modern humanity are the descendants of an ancient space-faring civilization that deliberately made itself primitive?" "Yes. Your ancestors sacrificed their advanced society to ensure humanity would survive. They knew that one day, their descendants would rediscover technology and find us when the time was right." The screens changed to show new images, dark shapes moving between distant stars, getting closer. "The time is now," the Guardian continued. "The Devourers have arrived in this galaxy. They have already consumed 17 star systems in the outer spiral arms. Other civilizations are fighting them, but they do not understand what they face." Admiral studied the images of destruction. "How long do we have?" "The Devourers move slowly, consuming everything in their path. They will reach the core systems of this galaxy within 6 months. They will reach Earth within 8 months." The Admiral looked around at the advanced technology surrounding them. 800,000 ships like this one, all hidden in their solar system, weapons that could reshape reality itself. "Can we win?" she asked. "Your ancestors believed so. They spent centuries designing us specifically to fight the Devourers. Every system, every weapon, every piece of technology was created for this one purpose." Was studying the manufacturing displays. "Guardian, these production facilities, how fast can they work?" "If fully activated, the entire fleet can produce 1 million smaller vessels per day. We can also upgrade your current Earth ships with our technology." Admiral made a decision that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but every living thing in the galaxy. "Guardian, I'm authorizing full activation of the fleet. Begin production immediately, and send a message to Earth Command. We're going to need every human who can fight." The ancient ship hummed with new energy as systems that had waited 12,000 years finally awakened to their true purpose. All around the outer solar system, 800,000 hidden Guardians began preparing for the war their builders had seen coming across the ages. The Devourers were coming, but humanity was no longer the young species the galaxy thought they were. They were the children of an ancient civilization that had planned for this moment across 12. The real war was about to begin. Doctor stood in the vast data archive of Vessel 7774, surrounded by holographic displays showing humanity's forgotten history. For 2 months, she and her team had worked day and night to decode the ancient records. What they found was both wonderful and terrifying. "You need to see this," called Dr. Wright from across the chamber. He was standing before a display that showed star charts spanning the entire galaxy. "I've found the full record of the ancient human civilization." Joined him, watching as the display came alive with moving images and data streams. The Guardian's voice filled the air around them. "What you see here is the truth of your people's past. 12,000 years ago, humanity controlled over 3,000 star systems. Your ancestors had mastered technologies that current galactic civilizations cannot even imagine." The display showed massive cities floating in space, planets transformed into garden worlds, and fleets of ships that dwarfed anything modern humans had ever built. "They were incredible," whispered, watching the images of her ancient ancestors moving between the stars like gods. "But even gods can face something greater than themselves," the Guardian continued. The display changed, showing the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. The detection stations at the galactic rim sent a warning that changed everything. The screens filled with images of horror, vast mechanical structures moving through the void between galaxies, ships the size of moons, built from dark metal that seemed to absorb light itself, and behind them, a trail of empty space where entire galaxies once existed. "The Devourers," said softly. "Your ancestors studied them for decades before they arrived in the neighboring galaxy. They watched as the Devourers consumed everything, not just planets and stars, but the very fabric of space itself. They turn living matter into fuel and convert stellar energy into more of their kind." Dr. Wright was studying the technical data flowing past on the screens. How do they do it? How do they consume entire star systems? The display showed close-up images of Devourer ships in action. Dark beams reached out from the mechanical giants, and whatever they touched simply ceased to exist. Planets cracked apart and flowed into the ships like water. Stars flickered and died as their energy was drained away. They convert matter directly into energy, then use that energy to build more of themselves. A single Devourer ship can consume a star system in weeks. A fleet of them can empty a galaxy in centuries. Felt sick watching the destruction. How many are there? When your ancestors detected them, the Devourers numbered in the millions of ships. They have been consuming galaxies for millions of years. Each galaxy they destroy makes them stronger. The display changed again, showing ancient human leaders gathered in a massive council chamber. Recognized the architecture from the ships around them. "Your ancestors faced an impossible choice," the Guardian explained. "They could fight the Devourers with their current technology and certainly lose, or they could prepare for a war that would not come for thousands of years." The images showed the great debate among the ancient humans. Some wanted to fight immediately. Others wanted to flee to distant galaxies. But a wise few proposed something different. "The plan was brilliant and terrible," the Guardian said. "They would sacrifice their entire civilization to ensure humanity's survival." Watched in fascination as the records showed the ancient humans building the hidden fleet. Thousands of worlds working together, pouring all their knowledge and resources into creating the ultimate weapons. "It took them 300 years to build us," the Guardian continued. "Every ship in the fleet was designed specifically to fight the Devourers. Our weapons can destroy their conversion technology. Our shields can resist their matter beams. Our manufacturing systems can outproduce their expansion rate." Dr. Wright was studying the technical specifications. But why hide? Why not keep your civilization and use these ships when the enemy arrived? The answer came with images that made heart break. Ancient humans saying goodbye to their families, boarding simple ships bound for primitive worlds throughout the galaxy. The Devourers detect advanced civilizations through their energy signatures and organized communications, the Guardian explained. A galaxy with spacefaring civilizations attracts their attention immediately, but a galaxy of primitive worlds appears empty to their sensors. Understood. So they deliberately made themselves primitive. They gave up everything they had built to hide from the enemy. Yes, they scattered across thousands of worlds, taking with them only basic tools and knowledge. They became farmers, hunters, and simple villagers. They told their children stories about the stars, but never the whole truth. Over generations, the stories became myths, and the myths were forgotten. The display showed the final phase of the Great Hiding, ancient human cities going dark, space stations shutting down, the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known choosing to become nothing more than scattered tribes. Some groups maintained more knowledge than others, the Guardian said. This is why some human cultures developed faster than others, but all of them eventually reached the same destination. A young species that would rediscover space travel just as the Devourers arrived. Dr. Wright was shaking his head in amazement. The timing is perfect. We've just reached the technological level to operate these ships right when we need them. Your ancestors planned it that way. They calculated exactly how long it would take humanity to redevelop space flight, and they timed the Devourers' arrival accordingly. Felt tears on her cheeks. The sacrifice her ancestors had made was beyond imagination. An entire advanced civilization, voluntarily returning to darkness so their children might one day have a chance to survive. Are we ready? She asked. Do we have enough time to prepare? The display changed to show current galactic conditions. Several star systems on the galaxy's edge were already dark, consumed by the advancing Devourers. The other galactic civilizations are trying to fight them, the Guardian reported. They have lost 12 colonies. The Crystalline Collective has fallen back to their core worlds. The Machine Empire's outer fleets have been completely destroyed. Studied the tactical displays. The Devourers were moving steadily inward, consuming everything in their path. None of them understand what they're fighting, the Guardian continued. They use conventional weapons against an enemy that feeds on energy. They try to negotiate with machines that see all biological life as fuel. They are losing badly. How long until they reach Earth? Dr. Wright asked. At their current rate of consumption, 4 months until they reach the middle systems, 6 months until they arrive at Earth sector. Looked around at the vast data archive, thinking about the incredible story it contained. Humanity wasn't just another young species struggling to survive. They were the secret weapon their own ancestors had prepared across 12,000 years. Guardian, have the other civilizations been told about us, about what we really are? No, that decision belongs to current humanity. But consider this. Those civilizations have dismissed humanity as young and weak for generations. They have ignored your requests for alliance and treated your people as inferiors. Thought about all the times humanity had tried to join galactic councils, only to be turned away. All the times other species had looked down on humans as primitive newcomers. Soon they will learn the truth, the Guardian said. When the fleet activates fully, when 800,000 ancient dreadnoughts emerge from hiding, the galaxy will understand what humanity really is. Smiled, thinking about how shocked the other civilizations would be. But then her expression grew serious as she remembered the approaching enemy. Guardian, when do we begin the real fight? Soon, child of Earth, very soon. Ambassador of the Empire stood frozen on the bridge of his diplomatic ship, staring at the impossible scene before him. Where empty space had existed just hours ago, Hundreds of massive starships now filled the void. Each vessel was larger than anything his people had ever built, their hulls gleaming with ancient power. "Impossible," he whispered, his 4 eyes blinking in disbelief. "The humans said they were a young species." On the main screen, Admiral appeared from the human flagship Endeavour. Behind her, could see the bridge of a ship that made his own vessel look like a toy. "Ambassador," Admiral said calmly, "thank you for answering our emergency communication." Admiral replied, struggling to keep his voice steady, "What are these ships? Where did they come from?" "These are humanity's true fleet. We've been waiting for the right moment to reveal them." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as human fleets appeared near every major civilization. In the Crystalline Collective's capital system, crystal beings watched in shock as ancient dreadnoughts materialized from what they had thought was empty space. Near the Machine Empire's core worlds, synthetic minds calculated and recalculated the impossible tonnage of metal and technology suddenly surrounding them. Fleet Commander of the Collective sent urgent communications to her superiors. "The humans have deceived us all. These ships, they're older than our entire civilization. How is this possible?" Meanwhile, in the outer galaxy, the first real test was about to begin. The Devourers had consumed the Helix Nebula colonies and were moving toward the Sanctuary system, home to 12 billion. Their dark ships appeared at the edge of the system like a spreading disease. Captain Sarah stood on the bridge of the ancient dreadnought Eternal Guardian, watching the enemy approach on her tactical displays. Her ship was one of 50 that had been selected for humanity's first direct engagement with the Devourers. "All ships, this is Guardian Control," came the voice of the fleet AI. "The enemy has arrived, beginning full combat activation." Around Captain, the ancient ship came alive with power that made her hair stand on end. Weapons systems that had slept for 12,000 years awakened with a hum that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. "Captain," reported her tactical officer, "the defense fleet is engaging the enemy. They're not doing well." On the main screen, watched as ships fired their most powerful weapons at the approaching Devourers. The energy beams and missiles that could destroy planets simply vanished when they touched the dark hulls of the enemy vessels. Meanwhile, the Devourers' own weapons reached out like hungry tentacles, and whatever they touched ceased to exist. "Fleet Command is calling for retreat," the communications officer reported. "They've lost 60% of their ships in the first engagement." Captain opened a channel to the fleeing Admiral. "Admiral, this is Captain of the human fleet. Fall back to the inner system. We'll take it from here." "Human fleet?" Admiral's voice was desperate. "With respect, Captain, but your small ships cannot handle these monsters. Our entire battle fleet couldn't even scratch them." "Admiral, trust me, fall back now." As the surviving ships retreated, Captain turned to her weapons officer. "All ships, prepare the reality shapers." The ancient weapons systems responded to her command. Deep in the belly of each human ship, devices that could bend the laws of physics itself began to charge with power that came from dimensions beyond normal space. The Devourers continued their advance, their dark ships beginning to extend feeding tentacles toward the system's star. They had done this thousands of times before. No species had ever seriously challenged them. "Fire," Captain ordered. The space around the human fleet seemed to fold in on itself as the reality shapers activated. Beams of impossible energy reached out toward the Devourer ships, but these weren't normal weapons. They attacked the very structure of matter and space. When the beams touched the first Devourer vessel, something unprecedented happened. The dark hull that had absorbed every other weapon now cracked and shattered like glass. The ship's conversion systems, which turned matter into energy, began consuming the ship itself. "Direct hit," called the tactical officer. "The target it's eating itself." Across the battle zone, 50 ancient human ships engaged 300 devourer vessels. The reality shapers tore holes in space around the enemy, turning their own consumption abilities against them. Devourer ships that had never been seriously damaged began breaking apart. Admiral watched from his retreating flagship in amazement. Impossible! How are the humans doing this? The Devourers, for the first time in millions of years, began to retreat. But the human ships pursued them, their weapons reaching across impossible distances to tear apart the fleeing enemy. "Guardian control to all ships," came the fleet AI's voice. "First engagement successful. Enemy force destroyed with 0 friendly casualties." Captain sank into her command chair, hardly believing what had just happened. 50 human ships had destroyed a devourer force that would have consumed an entire star system. But across the galaxy, the real shock was just beginning. The other civilizations had detected the battle, and the readings made no sense. Fleet Commander studied the energy signatures her sensors had recorded. "These readings are impossible. The humans are using technology that manipulates spacetime itself." In the capital, Emperor called an emergency council session. "How long have the humans possessed this technology? Why did they hide it from us?" Similar questions were being asked on every civilized world. For generations, the major powers had treated humanity as newcomers, barely worthy of notice. Now they realized that the species they had dismissed possessed weapons and ships that made their own fleets look primitive. On Earth, President Maria Santos addressed the emergency session of the Global Council. Around her, holographic displays showed the ancient fleet as it spread across the galaxy. "Citizens of Earth," she began, "today we learn the truth about our heritage. We are not a young species struggling to find our place among the stars. We are the children of the most advanced civilization this galaxy has ever known." The displays showed images from the ancient records, the great sacrifice their ancestors had made. 12,000 years ago, our ancestors gave up everything they had built to ensure we would survive this moment. They became primitive so that we could be strong when the galaxy needed us most. In space stations and colonies throughout human territory, people watched in awe as 800,000 ancient ships revealed themselves. The vessels that had hidden in the outer system for now moved toward the galactic core, ready for war. Ambassador finally found his voice as he watched the human fleet assemble near his ship. "Admiral, why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us believe you were weak?" Admiral smiled sadly. "Because you needed to learn to respect us for who we are, not fear us for what we could do. But now the enemy is here, and hiding time is over." The ancient fleet began to spread across the galaxy, taking positions at key points along the Devourer's advance. At each position, the same message was broadcast to local civilizations. "This is the human defense fleet. All civilian populations should evacuate to the galactic core. The eternal watch is ending. The real war begins now." For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers faced an enemy that could not only resist them, but actively hunt them down. And the galaxy watched in amazement as the species they had ignored revealed itself to be their ancient protector. The children of Earth were coming home, and they were bringing the fury of 12,000 years with them. The final battle began at the edge of the galactic core, where space itself glowed with the light of 1 billion ancient stars. Fleet Admiral stood on the bridge of the massive Dreadnought Terra's Promise, watching as the largest devourer force ever assembled prepared for their ultimate assault. "Ma'am," reported Commander Singh, "long-range sensors show the enemy fleet. The numbers are significant." Studied the tactical display and felt her breath catch. Over 50 million devourer ships darkened the space between galaxies, a mechanical horde that had consumed entire galactic clusters. This wasn't just their advance force. This was everything the Devourers had built over millions of years of destruction. "They're throwing everything at us," said quietly. They know this is their last chance. Behind humanity's flagship, 800,000 ancient dreadnoughts spread across space in perfect formation. Each ship hummed with power that made reality itself bend around them. And around each human vessel, newly built ships filled the void. Millions of smaller craft manufactured in the past months using ancient human technology. "Admiral," came the voice of the Guardian AI, "we are detecting communication attempts from the Devourer fleet." "Put it through." The bridge filled with a sound that seemed to come from the spaces between atoms, a voice that spoke in mathematics rather than words, but somehow understood it perfectly. "Young species, you have delayed the inevitable. Surrender your matter to the eternal purpose. Resistance brings only suffering." Opened a reply channel. "This is Fleet Admiral Sarah of the Human Defense Force. You are not welcome in our galaxy. Leave now or be destroyed." "Impossible. No species has resisted the convergence. Your weapons cannot harm the eternal purpose." "Our ancestors would disagree." The communication cut off and turned to her fleet commanders. Throughout the ancient vessels, the descendants of humanity's greatest civilization prepared for the battle their bloodline had been bred to fight. "All ships," announced, "this is what we were made for. This is why our ancestors sacrificed everything they had. Today, we honor their memory by protecting the galaxy they loved." The Devourer fleet began its advance, dark ships moving in patterns that hurt to look at. As they approached, space around them began to die. Stars flickered and went out. The very fabric of reality grew thin and cold. But humanity was ready. "Reality shapers to maximum power," ordered. "All ships fire at will." The space around the human fleet exploded with weapons that rewrote the laws of physics. Reality-bending beams reached across impossible distances, striking the Devourer ships with forces that attacked their very existence. The first wave of enemy vessels simply ceased to be. Their matter conversion systems turned against themselves. But there were millions more behind them. "Enemy return fire incoming," reported the tactical officer. Dark beams lanced toward the human fleet, weapons that could drain the energy from stars. But the ancient shields held, phasing the attacks into dimensions where they could do no harm. Across the battle zone, the true scope of humanity's preparation became clear. The 800,000 ancient ships were just the beginning. From hidden bases throughout the galaxy, millions of newly built human vessels emerged to join the fight. "My God," whispered Commander Singh, watching the displays. "How many ships do we have?" "Enough," replied. "Our ancestors spent 300 years building this fleet. Every calculation, every design, every weapon was created specifically to defeat the Devourers." The battle raged across light years of space. Human ships danced between enemy formations, their reality weapons tearing holes in the Devourer fleet. Ancient technology that had waited 12,000 years for this moment finally showed its true power. But the Devourers fought back with the fury of a force that had never faced real opposition. Their largest ships, massive structures the size of small planets, began to move forward. These were the core Devourers, the original machines that had started consuming galaxies millions of years ago. "Admiral," reported the sensor officer, "the large enemy vessels are charging some kind of." Watched as space around the core Devourers began to collapse inward. They were preparing to create artificial black holes, weapons that could consume entire star systems. "Guardian," called to the fleet AI, "time to show them what humanity really built." "Acknowledged, Admiral, activating the Omega Protocol." Throughout the human fleet, the deepest secrets of ancient human technology came online. Ships that had seemed impossibly advanced revealed even greater capabilities. The Dreadnoughts began to change, their hulls reshaping themselves into configurations that existed in multiple dimensions at once. "What are they doing?" asked Commander Singh, staring at the impossible transformations. "They're becoming what our ancestors really intended," explained. "Not just ships, but living expressions of human will." The transformed human vessels moved into the heart of the Devourer fleet. When the core Devourers fired their reality-destroying weapons, the human ships absorbed the attacks and turned them back on their creators. One by one, the ancient enemies of all life began to fall. Ships that had consumed countless galaxies found themselves consumed in turn by weapons designed by a species they had never encountered. But the most shocking moment came when the largest core Devourer, a structure older than most stars, sent out a final desperate message. "Impossible, you are the builders. The builders were consumed long ago." Understood. The Devourers had encountered humanity's ancient civilization before, in some distant galaxy. They had destroyed humanity's first empire, but somehow missed the fact that humans had spread to other galaxies. "We are the children of the species you destroyed," replied, "and we've spent 12,000 years learning how to kill you." The final phase of the battle was less a fight than an execution. Human ships surrounded the remaining Devourers, their reality weapons ensuring that none could escape. In 6 hours, a force that had threatened the galaxy for millions of years was completely destroyed. As the last Devourer ship ceased to exist, silence fell across the battlefield. For the first time in eons, the galaxy was truly safe. "Admiral," came a transmission from the Emperor, "on behalf of all civilized species, how do we thank you?" Looked out at the ancient human fleet, thinking of the ancestors who had sacrificed everything for this moment. "You don't need to thank us. This is what we were born to do." In the days that followed, as the galaxy celebrated its salvation, the truth about humanity spread to every civilized world. The species that others had dismissed as young and primitive were revealed as the galaxy's ancient guardians. But the real truth was simpler. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Devourers. They had fulfilled the greatest promise in galactic history, the promise their ancestors had made when they chose to sacrifice their civilization so that life itself could survive. Standing on the observation deck of Terra's Promise, watched as the human fleet began its journey home. Around them, the stars shone brighter, free from the shadow that had threatened them for so long. "Guardian," she said softly, "send a message to Earth. Tell them the long watch is over. Tell them their ancestors would be proud." "Message sent, Admiral, and for what it's worth, I believe they would be very proud indeed." As the ancient fleet made its way back to the Sol system, every species in the galaxy understood a new truth. Humanity wasn't just another civilization among many. They were the children of the greatest sacrifice ever made, the living promise that some things were worth protecting across any span of time. The galaxy was safe, and it would remain safe as long as the children of Earth kept watch among the stars.